All right, as promised, we're going to do barrel removal and a polishing procedure for the Western Sidewinder. Doesn't really matter what caliber until you get into your cleaning and your polishing tools, like the little brush. This is for a 25 caliber. They kind of range them. This won't fit a 22. They'll do them for, you can run them 6mm to 7mm, stuff like that. But you want to get you a number of these, several, like a half a dozen, maybe even a dozen. Get you a bag of cleaning patches, some sort of cleaner. This is a Hops cleaner degreaser from 1990 something. This is important. Get you some 3M rubbing compound, or you can go to the store, your local auto parts store, and get the like the Turtle Wax polishing. You can get the red and the green, and you can do a two-phase. It's not going to matter a whole lot. That's the body stuff. That's like professional shit, and it's a little more aggressive. And then, of course, your patch holder, not a big deal. Cleaning rod, you saw that. So before we get started, we want to just go ahead and take the sling off. Make sure the gun is on safe. We're not going to remove the bottle. There's no need to pull the bottle on it. Just make sure that you're safe here and you get it on safe down here. That's very important. You don't want any kind of unintentional discharge of the weapon. And we have the cylinder in here. Now, as you know, if the cylinder's out, you're totally safe with this gun. But if you do have an unintentional discharge, your ears are going to ring. So, you know, there's a few safety concerns involved, but nothing really crazy, you know. But we'll get the sling mount out of here and get the sling completely off to the side, which only takes a few seconds since we're not sponsored, but using the MS3 Gen 2, my go-to sling. What do they cost? $15 to $25 on eBay, and I'm going to start buying them by the bundle because I love them so much. The MS4, in my opinion, is really a piece of crap. They went backwards when they went to MS4. They tried to do too much with the little loop catch here on your latch here. So the paratrooper clip is the bomb, and I really don't care too much about this D-ring here. It's all fixed. But when you go to the MS4, I don't think you have much of an option when it comes to this guy right here and disassembling the sling. Well, I've got a couple here and I'm just not a fan of them. The MS3 Gen 2, really a perfect option. Great design. Okay, so we got the sling off. The first thing you want to do, now I did tell you, let me step back a minute here. We're going to talk a minute about this barrel and what we want to do when we go to reinstall the barrel. Before you pull it out, you want to measure, but I'm going to give you a general measurement, which they don't tell you in the book, and I'm sure if you called anybody, they wouldn't tell you either. But what I found, this thing is shooting ideally, and I could probably dial it in, back the barrel out a half a turn, and just go by 1/1000ths forward or one loose or 1/1000ths tighter with my chronograph. Props to your Garmin chronograph. If you got the cash, spring for one, you will love it. But 9/1000ths, get you a feeler gauge. 9/1000ths right there. You see that? So I'm going right here, right into the barrel, in between the barrel and the magazine, and I'm at 9/1000ths with this particular gun. And I'm going to say you're going to be consistent regardless of what gun you're shooting. But if you want to dial it in for perfect accuracy and perfect speed of your projectile coming out of the barrel, you know, you might be able to back this thing out, loosen your tolerance up a little bit Somebody said it's headspace. Technically, it's not head spacing. Head spacing is for a cartridge firearm, not for this thing. So you can refer to it however you want. But if you want to loosen your barrel up a little bit and keep an eye on your chronograph, you might gain 50 feet per second. Who knows? It's worth a try. But for right now, I'm going to say, for your general reference, 9 thousandths is the setting, the depth setting for your barrel into the upper receiver of this rifle. We square on that? Good enough. Just write that down somewhere. Western Sidewinder, 9 thousandths tolerance. And I will try in the near future to get out the chronograph and get my 100 meter target set up and dial it in with my gauge. I'll go to 8 thousandths. I'll go to 7 thousandths, and I'll try to report back to you on how tight you can go without interfering with this magazine. Because you do get too tight and it interferes with the magazine, and the magazine will not rotate after like 2 shots. I don't know if it's temperature that it heats up and it expands or what it does, but you can't hardly get this thing out. So basically what you have to do is bust the nuts loose and back the barrel out a half a turn to get your magazine out. It doesn't hurt anything. You're not going to damage anything, but it will interfere with the operation of the gun. So once you find that tight tolerance spot, remember it. And of course the feeler gauge is going to go down to 0. It's not going to be there. But when it's cold, unfired, you want to record that value and not go past that, which I'm guessing to be 4 thousandths, just my guess. Anyway, we've got that out of the way. Okay, we're squared on our tolerances for our magazine, and we're on safe. We're going to go ahead and pull this magazine out so that we are extra safe. And the first thing you want to do before you break anything loose is get a hold of this moderator here and try to bust it loose. I almost want to take the doggone scope off. And that moderator, as I'm turning it, you didn't see it, but my barrel's actually turning when I crank on that moderator. So I want now to tighten my barrel down a little bit more, which it shouldn't have to be that tight, but you don't want your moderator coming loose, right? So now we got this moderator, suppressor, whatever you want to call it. We got this loose, right? Boom. Screw it off and get it out of the way. Okay, you don't want it interfering with your operation here. There we go. Now, we're ready. Number 4, Allen wrench. 4 millimeter. Very simple. Okay. Then we back this screw off, and we back this screw off right here. Okay? Very simple. Loosen those about 4 or 5 turns, and then rotate your barrel counterclockwise. All right, there's your barrel. And this would be a good time to inspect the barrel. Make sure you're nice and clean. But before you start the polishing process, you want to clean it. You want to get out your rags, run a rag through it. This doesn't have any O-rings in it. Okay, it's just a straight barrel. Very nice, very convenient. I do like the barrels. Polish the heck out of it. Get out your little swabs, swab it dry, and then get your degreaser chemical. Run your degreaser through it. Swab it a couple times. Swab it with a couple of these. Get everything clean. Dry it out with swabs. Set your firearm off to the side. Pellet gun, whatever you want to call it. Now you got your barrel, right? Real simple. Now this end right here is the end with the moderator. You see the crown on the end of the barrel? That crown's very important. This is squared off. Interesting that this doesn't have a crown. You know what? Maybe, just maybe, pellet guns don't need a crown because the bullet's not traveling that fast. I don't know. Put something in the comments. Let me know. I'm learning too. So anyway, you don't want to damage. You don't want to buff out the crown on this barrel, the end of this barrel. You want to leave it as good as you can, and then get it up against the wall, block of wood or something, and put it up like that when you're doing your polishing. That way, This little guy here does not go through the barrel. It stops at the end of the barrel. And you're not putting any buffing compound or polishing compound out here toward the end. So they say that that's a very critical part of the barrel. So you get that, and what you do is you dip it into your buffing compound solution. And what I've seen is guys will run these on a full length barrel. They'll run them 1/3 and then 1/3 and then 1/3. Okay. And they'll do like 30 swipes and then 30 and then 30 and then clean it and then go back again 30, 30, 30 and then clean it, and sometimes they'll even go back for a third time. Okay. You're not going to over polish the barrel. I mean, you're talking about 30, 60, 90 swabs, right? 90 strokes. And if you do it in thirds at a time, you're still talking 90 throughout. And that's the way I've seen it done. And that's exactly the way I did this one, except I think I did this one half and half. I did like 30 and then 30 and repeated that like 3 times. So we had 90 swabs back and forth, and cleanings in between each 30 cycles. And that polished the barrel out. Now, once you're done polishing it, you want to go right back to your swabs. Now, I do want to mention before we get too far into this, this is a nylon brush. Okay, in years past, I'm talking quite a few years ago, the industry standard for everything we used for polishing a barrel back in the day was a brass brush. We all assumed that a brass brush wouldn't damage this steel in the lands, and what these professionals have found over the years is that a brass brush will actually polish your lands smooth. It'll scrub steel away, which is very unusual, but barrels are actually pretty soft steel. Some of them these days are really hard, where they make them out of a chromium, nickel chrome, or I don't know, whatever. You know, we make our race cars out of that chrome pipe. It's really hard stuff. It's very brittle. Anyway, nylon brush, okay? Get your nylon brush in there to clean it out. When you first clean it, and then after you're done polishing it, get that nylon brush out and run it just a couple times. These brushes are pretty aggressive, so you don't want to get too wild with them. Just a couple strokes with that nylon brush, and then get your polishing pad and your little hook there. Run it back a couple times, and then get your degreaser in there. Run your degreaser through with your swab, with a clean swab, and then get out your pad again. When you're all done, get out your pads again. Run 4 or 5 pads through it. Get it all nice and clean. Once it's all nice and clean, you can put all your toys away. Just remember, again, the block. Very important. Okay? Don't forget that piece. Now, we got all our toys put up, ready to put this thing back in, right? So we just get the gun over here. Get this barrel slid in. And it'll thread right into that upper receiver. Now, before you get crazy with it, you're going to get your magazine back out. Drop your magazine in there. Run it down. You'll feel it hit right there. It hit. I'm going to back it out about 3 turns, and then I'm going to put my feeler gauge in here. Now I hit my feeler gauge. My feeler gauge is not moving. I'm going to back it off. Right there, where the feeler gauge is nice and smooth flowing. No interference at all, okay? Just back it off just the slightest bit. Then crank these bolts back down again on the frame. 1 and 2. Again, that's all you need is a number 4. And I think to bust this whole gun apart, the entire gun, you only need a couple. Is that a 2 or a 2.5? That's a 2. Like a 2, a 3, and a 4 will take this entire gun apart. You don't need a whole lot of tools. That's one thing I like about it. It's engineered so that you can take it apart without having to have an entire toolbox. And if you're in the field, this really is all you need if you get crazy with it. And like I just showed you, a barrel change out on this thing is 5 minutes. It's pretty nice. It really is. So now that that's all cranked down, we're going to get our suppressor, moderator, whatever you want to call it. We're going to get him back out. We're going to thread him on there. And we're not going to crank him down. We're just going to get him threaded in and just hand tight. I mean, you don't want to go crazy with it, because then when you got to come back off, you saw what happened. I really struggled to get it off. And to be honest with you, I'm struggling to get the threads started here. I think these are an is that an M14 probably, and it's a pain in the ass to get the threads even started. So let me see if I can get these started here. There, I heard it snap into place. So there we go. We just run that down, nice and easy. And just finger tight there. Don't get crazy with it, because then when you got to take, if you ever have to take it back off again, you're going to fight with it. And then of course I'll put my sling back on later. It's not a big deal. It takes 2 minutes. Gosh, anything else? Now I did mention, you know, when I went through the comparison, side-by-side comparison with the Hatsan and the Western, I forgot to mention the trigger pull on the Western versus the Hatsan. The Hatsan's around 10 pounds of trigger pull, and if you know what I'm talking about, it's heavy. That's a heavy trigger pull. This thing is probably 3 to 4 pounds. It's very light trigger, very nice. Feels like you're shooting a competition trigger. Of course, there's no hammer spring in here to worry about. You don't have any silliness going on in here. It's just an air valve, which is the thing I really love about this gun. But there you have it. There's your barrel change out. There's your polishing procedure. There's the materials that you need. If you have any questions, throw them down in the comments. I just don't know where else to go with it. There's just so little to be concerned about on this gun. I don't know, but I hope you've enjoyed the video. I hope it puts you in a good place to feel comfortable tearing this thing down, or just taking the barrel off and polishing it out, and going out there and enjoying your time shooting it. I know that when you are out there and you're shooting it, you've got a pretty good group initially. When you buy it out of the box, it's got a pretty good group. But when you get that barrel polished, you're going to see that group tighten up. This gun with the short barrel is a sub 1 MOA. So it's very, very nice, very accurate. So I'm going to do some more shooting with it, and I hope you do some shooting with whatever you got at home. And if you don't have something, buy something, because we may not be here tomorrow. You just don't know. You don't know. You could have a heart attack tonight, and you'll be at the pearly gates talking to St. Peter, telling him, you know, I really regret not buying that rifle. Anyway, enjoy your time. Enjoy your shooting. Be safe at the range. All right. Have a good week.